Stephanie, when I first approached you about working on a film about the obesity epidemic, I guess it was now, what, 3.5, almost 4 years ago, you were not convinced that there was any there, right? Why?
You know, there have been so many news reports about food and the obesity epidemic, and I thought, what, is there really new information out there? And as we all learned, there was so much information, I couldn't believe it, so.
You unearthed so much about what has happened really in the last 30, 35 years in this country. Were you surprised what you learned in the process of researching this? Because you did exhaustive research.
I was shocked because it really unfolded sort of like a murder mystery, and you can trace it back to 1977 when the first dietary goals were released by the government. And so, you know, as we started following the timeline of what happened after that, you just saw all these markers, and as these markers came out, you saw the obesity rates going up as well too. So it just was remarkable how much it coincided.
And we're going to talk about those specific markers in a minute, but Laurie, you were the executive producer of An Inconvenient Truth back in 2006, which obviously was such a watershed moment in the conversation, funny word to say watershed moment, in the conversation about climate change. What did you learn in the process of making that film that made you realize that this kind of movie could be very impactful?
Well, you have to permeate popular culture with an issue that affects everybody. And I think both issues, global warming and Fed Up, I mean, they have some similarities. They're very huge issues that have a lot of misinformation swirling around them. The exciting thing for me is that with global warming, the solution has to do with governments cooperating, but with Fed Up, the solutions are individual and very personal and very doable. So that's exciting, I think.
And we're going to talk about those solutions as well. But Stephanie, I know you spoke with politicians. We interviewed Bill Clinton, Mike Bloomberg, all sorts of experts in sort of food, nutrition, health. But you also profile some families, and I think their stories are particularly heartbreaking, especially the children. What did they all have in common, in your view?
When I went in to start filming with these families, I think I had the same stereotype that there was these people lacked willpower, or you know, they were lazy and maybe they should exercise more. And the thing that they all had in common, and they were in different parts of the country, different socioeconomic groups, they were all trying. They were all trying so hard, but they had the wrong information. And that just shocked me.
And in fact, I know that from 1980 to 2000, fitness memberships in this country doubled. And so did the obesity rate. And one of the things that I think that perhaps these families misunderstood was this whole notion of energy balance, of diet and exercise, calorie in, calorie out. And this film really takes this whole notion and turns it on its head.
Right, it does, and I think it surprised all of us. Exercise is critical for good health. There is no question about that. But we cannot exercise our way out of this problem. And if you look at like what it would take for just one can of soda to exercise that off, a child would have to bike for 1 hour and 15 minutes for that one can of soda. So there's not enough hours in the day to do this energy balance thing. And I think there's also another misnomer about food, that all calories are the same. And we really, I think we debunked that myth very powerfully in the movie.
Now we have a question from social media, from Twitter. Brittany asks, what were some of the most staggering facts you discovered when making this movie? There were so many, but what comes to mind for both of you?
It's hard to pick one, but I think the initial one was that this will be the first generation of kids expected to lead shorter lives than their parents. And I just couldn't believe that that could happen in this day and age.
I would say mine has to do with the supermarket. And you know if you're eating a lot of ice cream or you're having donuts that you're having sugar, but you probably don't know when you're buying bottled salad dressing or spaghetti sauce or healthy granola bars that they're loaded with sugar too.
I think for me it was that in 1980 there were 0 cases of type 2 diabetes among adolescents. And then by 2010 there were almost 58,000 cases of type 2 diabetes in adolescents. I mean, I think also the 1 in 3 overweight or obese in just a few decades. I mean, I think it's full of really shocking statistics. Meanwhile, Nicole Breeden on Facebook asks, will there be any long-term consequences of our country's obesity crisis? Oh, Nicole. Yes, the answer is yes. I mean, it has such an impact on so many areas. Can you explain?
Well, one area is obviously it's going to bury us in healthcare costs. No question about it. and who are going to be our first responders, and we have soldiers who are going to be unfit for the military service. So, I mean, the impacts are gigantic. And
also global competitiveness, because I think nutrition, really there's a close correlation between good nutrition and high academic performance.
Right.
So sort of we're eating ourselves into stupidity, I hate to say it, but it really does affect your mental acuity.
Right.
Military preparedness, Stephanie?
Yeah, I mean, they're finding that they're having a hard time recruiting soldiers because they're too fat to fight. So, this affects us on so many levels, and that was just so shocking to me, because I think you think this is someone else's problem, right? If you're not overweight, then this isn't your problem, but it affects us all.
But it's also heartbreaking for children, because if you are overweight as a child, the chances are you're going to be overweight as an adult, and that's going to impact every aspect of your life, your self-esteem, your opportunities. I mean, it's really heartbreaking, and this is an emergency, and I think we really hope, all of us hope, that Fed Up is going to be a catalyst for some honest conversation.